My name is Pam Edgar. I'm the Director of Education for CaringKind, and we welcome you again to Caregiving Through the Holidays, creating joy and reducing stress. And we welcome our guest speaker, Pam Atwood. Pam is a gerontologist, psychotherapist, dementia specialist, and author with over 35 years of experience working with older adults and people with dementia in residential, community, and home-based services. Pam is a seasoned educator and certified trainer for the National Council of Certified Dementia Practitioners and she's also a certified laughter therapist. So welcome, Pam. We're so glad to have you. Let me stop the sharing the slide.
And I will start sharing mine. Let's see here, and I will slideshow from beginning. All right. So, welcome everybody. I think that when we're talking about helping people with cognitive disorders and families managing that over the holidays, I think first we have to recognize that the holidays are stressful for all of us without the cognitive impairment. As I was saying to a family member, I'm a retired sweet Adeline, so I used to sing competitively. And I was just saying to a family member, what I really miss about that is that by now I would be fully entrenched in the holiday spirit because we would have been rehearsing our Christmas music and holiday music since September. So now I feel like, Thanksgiving's right around the corner. We've still got Halloween candy over by the door, and I just feel so far behind already, and I'm not ready for this. Now, at this time in my life, I'm not a caregiver, but I have been a caregiver before. And of course, I've been working in the field for decades now. And I think that one of the real challenges is how to manage our expectations. So let's jump right in here and identify, especially when we're dealing, and this picture is relevant to very little, except that I thought it was adorable. I love it when people I don't remember the name of it when you put human characteristics on animals, but I love it. It's very challenging for all of us, but especially for a person with a cognitive disorder because of the disrupted routines. A lot of times when we talk about, people even attending an adult day program, what's beneficial of the adult day program is the routine. And routine almost acts like a prosthesis for a brain that is challenged. So that routine is very, very special. It's just one less thing they have to worry about. Bring in the holidays and everything gets disrupted. Then we also have that sensory overload. And what I always use as my example when I'm trying to describe to people what people living with dementia experience when that filter is gone, when we have a filter that helps us eliminate background noise. Like right now, the chair I'm in is very squeaky. And it's very distracting to me, but I filter that out so I can focus. Well, maybe I'm not doing a very good job of it today, but that filter is disrupted when a person gets a cognitive disorder. So now all of the environmental stimuli are bombarding them. When we have holidays, whether it's the flashing lights or the candles or the electrical cords or family visiting, loud, excited children, whatever it is, it becomes a sensory overload. It becomes very overwhelming. Travel demands are stressful anytime, but they can also be stressful, on a, tenfold for a person living with dementia. And then our emotional expectations. I was on the phone with a client this morning, and as she pointed out to me, she just had their third child's wedding. All three got married this year. And the reason they chose to do that is because dad's got such a decline in his memory that they really felt that if they wanted to have the wedding they wanted with dad as functional as he could be, then they needed to do it sooner rather than later. So all three kids got married in this one year. Um, that the emotional expectations of what will a wedding be like, we can expect or anticipate that. We have the same kind of reaction for our holidays. So what will our holidays be like? What will our holidays, and we as caregivers put a lot of stress on this, right? This is the last holiday possibly where dad's going to remember everybody's name. Or we might say, oh, well, we've got to do this holiday because mom loves this holiday so much. It means so much to her. And we're hoping always as caregivers for those moments of clarity. And so we put extra emotional expectations on holidays. Our caregivers, or us as care partners, we often have confounded emotions as well. We have a lot of guilt when we start thinking about scaling back our typical celebrations. Someone said to me last week that they were really excited and looking forward to Thanksgiving because they're doing the whole thing at a restaurant. Well, it never occurred to me to think about doing Thanksgiving at a restaurant. And now I'm thinking, that might not be a bad idea. It's probably too late right now for me to do that. But, at what point do we say, what are we doing this for? Yes, there are wonderful holiday traditions, but how many of us beat ourselves up about, well, gee, the turkey didn't come out perfectly, or my sister brought that pea salad and nobody likes it, and it went home with her because nobody ate it, whatever it is. Everybody's got these emotions, the guilt, the pressure, that feeling of I've got to do it all, I've just got to do it. And then we, on top of that, have grief over the changes in our loved ones and the family tension, right? They are all expecting something else to be going on, or there's resentment because I'm doing all of this and that sister or that brother isn't doing their fair share, and that builds up. So we have to acknowledge those things. One of the things that I think is most important at the holidays is forgiveness. And when we're talking about what is something that we could all give ourselves as care partners is forgiveness. The first step for forgiveness is making space for the anger and recognizing and validating that anger, that you have every right to be upset about the fact that thus and such happened or didn't happen. Then we need to kind of process that and say, okay, what does that mean on a scale of 1 to life? Is this something that's worth getting so upset about? But also recognizing forgiveness is about ourselves. It's not about me forgiving my sister. It's about me forgiving so that I have a sense of peace. And I think that's something that a lot of us kind of forget. Then we have to make space or recognize that resentment may have been building, and what are we going to do with that? We have to process that. As a psychotherapist, I get a lot of phone calls this time of year because people are feeling that they need a chance to process this so they can get emotionally ready for family coming in at the holidays. And that's an okay thing to do. And then we get into the forgiveness part. But unless we're dealing with the emotional aspects of the anger and resentment, then we're not going to be able to have the forgiveness in our hearts. So I think that's a really important caregiver emotion to recognize as well. Just to review, we all need to, as care partners, be aware of what are the symptoms of stress in our person living with dementia. And sometimes it's just being quiet and withdrawn. And we might think, oh, they're being really quiet today. Or that could be a sign of stress. Sundowning symptoms may increase. They may become more restless, more agitated, more likely to wander. As Pam Edgar mentioned, at the introduction, register this person now in the Wanderer Safety Program if you haven't already, because the stressful part of wandering is not having anticipated the potential. So, a lot of times persons will wander, and that's when we know that they have a wandering issue because it's already happened. Instead of recognizing that more than 50% of all people with dementia wander and become lost at least once during their disease. And I think that that's important to remember at the holidays when we're distracted with so many other things, whether we're traveling or not, there is a potential for that wandering crisis. The fatigue is another sign of stress. They may be sleeping more or resting more, anxiety, restlessness, agitation. All of these things are signs of stress. Doesn't mean we don't recognize the holiday. It does mean that we need to look at how to adapt so that the holiday can be enjoyed by everybody. So let's talk about planning ahead. We're going to break these things down. And one of the very first things is to simplify our traditions. A lot of us focus on the one day, like Thanksgiving is one day. Well, what if we didn't make it all about the one day? What if instead of, like, my sister is coming, well, she goes to her in-laws for the meal and then comes to my house with our family and the rest of her family for dessert. If her husband had a cognitive impairment, what I would suggest she do instead is stretch that out. So you're not doing everything all in one day. There's nothing wrong with having your pies on the next day with the other half of your family. It really does help to make it all less overwhelming. Figure out the most important part of your holiday traditions and focus on those. For my mom, Christmas Eve is the big thing. Now, what we did last year for the first time was we hired someone to come in and help us with the setup and the cleanup. And let me tell you, game changer. We got a hold of her last week just to confirm because we had booked her. We had such an enjoyable Christmas Eve that we booked her again for this year right then and there. It takes some little tweaking to make the holiday that much more meaningful and enjoyable. Could the three girls all have sat there and cleaned up? Of course, we did every other year. And yet part of that was we felt like we were missing something, the Yankee swap or the hugs and kisses goodbye while I'm, wiping my hands of the soapy water. Oh, give me a hug before you go. I don't have to do that when we've had someone. It doesn't have to be expensive, just come in for a couple of hours to help us with the setup and the cleanup. Rather than going to great lengths to bring that person living with dementia to all of the events or places that can't necessarily adapt to their needs, consider bringing the traditions to them. So instead of going to Rockefeller Plaza for the tree lighting and, ice skating and all of that, consider a smaller scale celebration, maybe just watching the tree lighting from your house. Now, if you're New Yorkers, you probably don't go to the tree lighting. You're probably watching it on television anyway. I don't know. It's like the parade, right? The Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. No one from New York actually goes to the parade. It's all tourists. So, and I don't know that that's true, but my New York family doesn't go to the parade. Um, I think that it's important to think just like we do, whoops, with other changes and adaptations. It's okay to adapt the holiday traditions as well. Consider what time of day is best for the person living with dementia and schedule the activities during that time. I think one of the most important things is to really, sorry, I've got a cat who wants to come cuddle, so I keep trying to push her away. I think that, scheduling those activities for their best time is really essential, and we have to allow for a lot of rest, both before and after. And if it is a traveling kind of day, then you're going to want to make sure that the next day there's very little on the calendar because it does take a time for the person to adjust to where they are, acclimate where they are. The client that I mentioned that I had this morning left a day before the what's it called when the rehearsal dinner. So she got there the day before the rehearsal dinner so that her husband could kind of relax and adapt and acclimate. And then the next day, he had been well rested and by the evening was primed and ready to have a good time with all of the family guests. For the meal, overwhelming plates. And it's overwhelming for all of us, right? We all load up that plate with a little scoop of this and a little scoop of that, and it's all overwhelming. For people with moderate or later stages of cognitive impairment, just focus on one or two of their favorite parts of the holiday meal. Maybe it's the stuffing and well, for my husband, I'll tell you it will be the roast beef and the Yorkshire pudding. Those are the two things that he likes the most. Then after he finishes that, then I might bring over some mashed potatoes or, some green beans, whatever it's going to be. I think that it really does depend on their appetite and what they're willing to do. But if you know they always eat well and you bring them this little big overwhelming plate, plus all of the external noise and the expectations and everything, then all of a sudden they're just pushing around the stuff on their plate and they're not eating much at all. So remember that part of that is possibly due to those cognitive changes, and just focus on one or two pieces on that plate at a time. Scale down the decorations too. Consider a dimmer for lights. Avoid flashing lights or lights that create a lot of shadows. So you want to have your house lights, like I'm in my dining room. So my dining room, the chandelier is on full bright, but the additional lights might be on a dimmer. Just because we know that visual changes and the issue with shadows becomes more difficult for the cognitively impaired person to manage the environment and to react accordingly. Family dynamics. Oh, I love family dynamics. So if a person has not been by lately, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, help each family member know what to expect. So many times the out of towner comes in and they're like, wow, dad's a lot worse than I thought he was. I don't understand what happened. He's really going downhill fast. And the care partner who's living with dad is going, are you kidding me? I've been dealing with this on a day-to-day basis. How could you not know? Maybe if you showed up. And again, that resentment and that anger builds. Preparing them in advance a little bit to say, okay, just so you know, dad's changed since the last time you saw him, and here's what you may experience. The other thing that happens, in all honesty, and I did not see this in any of the materials that I did in preparation for this presentation, but I will tell you I've seen it a million times in real life. When the out of town family member arrives, all of a sudden the person living with dementia seems so much better. And all of a sudden, the brother from out of town says, well, I don't understand, Pam, what's going on? You painted a picture as if dad was really advanced. Look at him, he's fine. He knows who everybody is. Yeah. It always kind of happens that way. And the family caregiver who lives with the person is saying, this isn't right. What happens is the brain loves novelty. And when someone comes in from out of town or they're unexpected or whatever, sometimes that stimulates different neuronal connections in the brain. And what happens is all of a sudden the brain starts functioning on a different level. And honestly, if the family stuck around for a week or two, they'd see what you see. So sometimes that can happen, and just kind of be aware of that if you're the care partner living with the person, that could happen. Create a checklist and request each family member take a task. Nothing wrong with that. And that can include if you know you need to clean before or do a lot of baking and you just don't want to have to worry about your loved one, just say, okay, I want you to take dad out for lunch today. It doesn't have to be like, here, I want you to clean the toilets. What is it that another person can do to help ease your burden of having to put this all together? Or is it again, an adapted holiday celebration where you're going to say, rather than having everybody come to our house, what we're going to do is we're going to come and drop off gifts, and we would like to open them with each of you in your home separately. Um, Create a list of, oh, excuse me, encourage each family member to take turns. So during a holiday celebration, what is a good tip to try is that if, like, so when my grandmother would be sitting in the living room and everybody's kind of milling around, like grabbing food in the kitchen or sitting in the dining room, what have you, take turns, almost like shifts, to say, okay, Charlotte, you're going to go sit with Graham at this time, and then Tommy, why don't you go relieve Charlotte so that Charlotte can come visit with the cousins, and then, Debbie's going to go over there, or Abby's going to go over there, and everyone take turns kind of sitting with the person with dementia so that they don't feel left out. I can't tell you how many times, like even my mother last year, she's sitting in her recliner and we're all about milling about somewhere else. And we're all realizing, wait a minute, mom's not included in this. We need to include mom. Create a list of easygoing topics for conversations or conversation starters so that everybody has something that they can talk about where the person with dementia can easily relate and have a conversation. Otherwise, especially if they're not used to dealing with or visiting with a person with a cognitive impairment, some family members are just going to sit there and say, so, how you feeling? And it's painful to watch when that happens. And you think, it's your aunt. How can you not know what to say to your aunt? Or young children. One of the things that I recommend for kids, and this is I wrote a book last year called Auntie P, Music and Me. And Auntie P is the person living with dementia. This is actually based on a true story. She was my cousin, and she had young onset Alzheimer's disease. And what we did when she came to live with us for a month is my daughter Charlotte, who was 9 at the time, created a playlist of her favorite songs. So, just the activity of creating a playlist and then listening to the songs was a great activity to do one-on-one, especially in a little quieter area. And they could spend that special time together. And that's one of Charlotte's favorite holiday memories now and that was actually for a different holiday, it was for Easter. And that's one of Charlotte's favorite Easter holidays is memories, is to sit there and make a playlist of Auntie P's favorite music. And also encourage family to have realistic expectations about the adapted. So, gee, I know usually we do all kinds of lawn ornaments and decorations, but now we're going to be scaling it down a little bit. So, just to have them all be prepared. Adapting the environment is probably one of the most important things. If a person living with a cognitive impairment does have, still cooks or bakes or what have you, just remember that they're feeling stressed too with the holidays. So you want to spend some extra attention on, did they turn off the stove? Are they putting something on a stove that's still hot? Did they turn off the oven? Focus on that calm over the chaos. Make sure you've got a spot somewhere in your apartment or your home where it's a little calmer. Set reminders or alarms from it. Oh, I was just going to say, one of my favorite things that we did was we moved, when my grandmother lived with us, we moved her rocking chair out of the living room and into her bedroom. So that way, if she just needed a little bit of quiet, she could go sit in her rocking chair in her bedroom. And it really does, rocking chairs are wonderful, although it can be, especially if a person has a balance and fall problem, it can be a little scary if they're trying to get up from a rocking chair. But a rocking chair is self-soothing. And if you think about the very basic reflexes and sensory, I mean, from the start of life, rocking is one of the most soothing ways, and for self-soothing, one of the most important ways that a person can calm themselves and de-escalate from stress. Even if you don't do it now, during the holidays is very important to set reminders or alarms for medications because with disrupted routines, all of a sudden we forget those medications. And that reminded me today, you know what, the silly season's coming. I'm going to start setting reminders for myself because this is exactly the kind of day or kind of year, time of year where I would start to forget to take my meds. And I'll think, wait a minute, did I take my meds this morning? I got up early because we were getting the windows done. Did I take them this morning? And I'm pretty sure I did. Um, Regularly check in with the person with a memory problem and ask if they need a break. Do they need a rest? A lot of us move furniture around for holiday decorations. Remember that moving furniture increases risk of falls in older adults, regardless of cognitive status. Also, of course, electrical cords can become a trip hazard. Make sure that you're putting them under a rug or taping over them or using one of those little plastic thingies. But also make sure that those are secure so that if you are putting it under a rug, that throw rug doesn't become a trip hazard. I mean, throw rugs are trip hazards anyway. But we just want to minimize and be mindful of all of these things that could increase someone's risk of falls. Also, with all cooking and cleaning, watch out for potential household disasters. Like I said before, burning things, forgetting to take it out of the oven, off the stove, or ingesting inappropriate substances. I did a whole webinar, I think it's still on the website, about household hazards. And, one of the images, one of the pictures there is a box, or excuse me, a bowl of candy. You know how we all have those bowls and they put candies in them? And inside of one is a Tide Pod. And you would never know that it was dangerous because it looks just as festive as all of the other candies in the bowl. Well, obviously ingesting that, very dangerous. You just want to be careful. You really do want to be careful. More mindful, I guess. Haha, travel chaos. So this is one of the bigger issues. There is a dementia family airport project, so you might want to call your local airport and find out if they have a dementia-friendly program. TSA also has a passenger support specialist available. In order to access that, you want to call 72 hours ahead of your travel, and the phone number is there, 855-787-2227, and ask about what supports can you get. You're traveling with a loved one, or maybe your loved one with dementia is traveling alone. And then try to just find out what they can do. Where is it here on my list? Yeah, yes, the bottom bullet, I should have moved up to the top here. Use the wheelchair transport. Now, my father is fully able to walk, and my sister, the nurse practitioner, insisted that on his recent trip to visit her in North Carolina, that he use the wheelchair transportation. He was very reluctant, but I'm going to tell you, you only have to try it once and then you realize how wonderful it is. You get faster, expedited support through TSA, through the safety checks, and you can use that wheelchair transport from the door to the gate to the plane. I mean, they can also then escort you to your seat if you need to, and then off the plane, up the concourse, and out to baggage claim and back to the door. It is wonderful. And I actually used this on our last trip back in March because I have spinal stenosis and bone-on-bone arthritis in my knees. So for me to be in a wheelchair just felt, oh, really? Am I at this point? Oh, how did this happen? Yada, yada, yada. I'll never travel any other way. It made our trip not just bearable, but delightful. I didn't have to worry about pain. I didn't have to worry about moving too slowly and making other passengers walking behind me feel like I was in their way. I didn't have any of those worries. It was a blessing, truly. If at all possible, choose nonstop flights. If you can't, do remember to look for family restrooms. I do recommend for most of my clients wear an undergarment in case of incontinence because you don't want to be on a plane in this tiny little space having to deal with having to change someone or get them clean. And then, like I said, those family restrooms that are available once you're in the airport terminal. Caregiver, keep all of the IDs, your travel IDs, like your passport, your driver's license, etc. We have a client at CaringKind who, I guess it was 2 winters ago now, her family for their holiday trip went to Iceland, and they all almost couldn't get home because on the last day she could not find her passport, and they weren't going to be able to get out of the country. And it was panic on everyone's docket that day. She finally did find it exactly where the passport was supposed to be in her bag. But it was just one of those things. I mean, I do it all the time. I'm looking for my headphones and I'm like, where are they? And I'm looking through my purse or my bag and I can't find it. So I'm not even saying that that had to necessarily be doing because she had a cognitive impairment, but for whatever reason, she didn't see it. She didn't recognize that it was her passport that she was looking for and couldn't find it. They were retracing steps. It became an absolute disaster nightmare. Also, caregivers keep all of your insurance cards, emergency phone numbers in case you have to call back to other family, or to the physician, those sorts of things. Keep all of that. Use Life 360 or another kind of locator app on phones. That way, I mean, most of us nowadays, not everybody, but most of us now is um, handling and carrying their phones. So as long as they've remembered to charge it, you can then locate people with that locator app pretty close to, accurate as to where they are in case you get separated or if they've wandered off. It's not a replacement for that Wanderer Safety Program, but it will give you a great deal of peace of mind. Bring extra doses of medications just in case of delays. Bring copies of the health history and all of the prescriptions or a list of the prescriptions. Put emergency info on the person living with dementia and in their bag or carry-on as well. My dad's trip down to North Carolina was a golfing trip, and he shipped his golf clubs in advance. And since they were taking his golf clubs, he also shipped his suitcase. Well, the suitcase got to my sister's house, no problem, but the golf clubs didn't. Instead, there was a box, and the box was comb nails. It said nail combs, but it was a specific kind of nail that's used in carpentry, and it was supposed to go to our Hebron. I'm in Hebron, Connecticut, the Hebron Ace Hardware. That's what showed up at my sister's house instead of the golf clubs. Panicsville. Well, luckily, Dad had also put his contact information inside his golf club's bag so that when they started looking for things, they were able to find it, and his golf clubs came the next day. He then had shipped back with his stuff, the stuff that went to our local hardware store. So things can happen, and just having extra information like that is helpful in your bags and all of your individual bags, as well as on the outside. The outside label had apparently fallen off. He watched the guy put it on, but it had apparently fallen off in the truck. So when they picked it up, they just put it right back, what they thought was the right Hebron box, but it was the one going to the hardware store. And like I said, using the transport for baggage claim. We all know that right now, traveling by plane is chaos. I have to travel down to New Jersey on the Saturday of Thanksgiving weekend for an engagement party. I'm dreading this because I know that traffic is going to be a bear. And so we're planning different games to play in the car. We are planning on having snacks that we love, and making it a fun time so that when, not if, but when we get stuck in traffic going from Connecticut to New Jersey that Saturday, we will still be able to have some good memories and a good time and a lot of giggles because that's what we do. So, inclusive activities. This is one of the things that I love about this time of year is that it is so multisensory. Number one, if we're talking about conversations, we want to use conversations that use reminiscence, going back to their long-term memory, which in Alzheimer's disease is usually more well preserved. In other kinds of dementias like vascular dementia or from a traumatic brain injury, it may not be as well preserved or retained. Instead of saying, do you remember? Or, oh, you remember, say, tell me about. Or have them share classic stories or read 'Twas the Night Before Christmas or the story of, the Hanukkah story with the oil and the 8 nights. Tell those stories or have people share classic stories so that we're not just saying, oh my God, remember last year Uncle Eddie did blah, 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 because a person with dementia might not remember that. Use simple, familiar tasks, encourage their involvement, cutting fruit for pies, mixing the batter, polishing the silverware. This is all wonderful, wonderful, simple activities that people can do and stay involved. It takes just a little more planning on our care partners' part to say, okay, what can I give them to do so that they feel like they're contributing, so they feel like they're engaged and involved. Also, multisensory experiences, cider, eggnog with nutmeg, pies, stuffing, familiar smells, familiar tastes. All of those are great ways to engage a person and include them. Music, go for the holiday classics. Stick with, again, depending on what holiday we're talking about, stick with the things that are reminiscent, and not some of the newer songs. Movies, the oldies but goodies. I would pick, no, now I can't think. It's a Wonderful Life, but what's the other one? White Christmas. I would pick those movies over any Hallmark movie. Nothing against the Hallmark movies, but that's not going to necessarily engage them the way their old favorites will. Walks in the crisp winter air. I mean, as New Englanders and as Northeasterners, we are all primed for this time of winter air. There's so many nursing homes, I'll say, oh no, it's too cold. We can't bundle them up. Come on, put on the hat and the scarf and the mittens. That's half the fun. Let them go out and feel the snowflakes coming down or that crisp winter air. I'm actually kind of excited because tonight it's supposed to really drop down, and tomorrow we're getting to a nice cold snap. I love this time of year. I love bundling up. Let the person with the memory problems bundle up too. And then feel those pines, those evergreens, the pine cones, the candy canes, the dreidel. Make it something that you're using their sight, their touch, their smell, all of the different senses, so that way we're using multiple parts of their brains, not just the memory piece, or we're building into those layers of memory or tapping into the layers so that we can say, what is this? There's also a wonderful game we used to play when I was working on a dementia special care or memory care unit. We used to put a sack together, and in this sack, we would have a pine cone, a Christmas ornament, a cookie cutter, different things. And so they would put their hand in the sack and have to guess what it is based on the kinesthetics. That's a special kind of cognition, and I can't remember what it's called right now, but that's okay. And stereognosis, that's what it is. Using that kind of cognitive ability so that they can kind of guess what that is. And it's a fun game. And you can do that. You can have them pick out the things they want to put in the bag and do it with all the kids and have a prize. So, somebody gets a candy cane or put the candy cane in the bag, whatever it's going to be. So those are some ideas that I came up with. You can come up with all kinds of different activities to do at this time of year. Like I said, folding the napkins, setting the table, polishing the silver. All of those are also really helpful activities, but are also inclusive activities. As always, if you need more information on any of this, definitely talk to a navigator. People are at CaringKind just waiting to take your calls or respond to your emails through our helpline. They can help you with different ideas and resources. And I must have spoken very quickly. I apologize because I'm running a little bit faster than I thought I would. But let's open it up for questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Pam. I'm going to join you here, and
Of course.
we'll look in our chat and see if there are any questions. We're also going to enable people. So we're going to stop the focus mode. So if you'd like to come on camera, you're welcome to. You can stay off camera if you like. We're also going to allow people to come off mute as well. So if you'd like to unmute yourself, you can certainly do that and ask a question directly or ask in the chat. Either one is fine. Let's see if there are any questions today. Any holidays? I also want to
Or
let people
share
know.
your ideas of what's worked for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I put in the chat, as you were talking about the airlines, there is a hidden disability sunflower network now
Yes.
where people can get a lanyard sort of card with a sunflower on it. It
Yep.
helps people in the airports know that this is someone who may have a hidden disability, need a little extra support.
Excuse me.
So that's a great thing to check out as well.
And my understanding is not all airports participate in that program, but find out if they do. Like I said,
Correct.
call and find out if they do. It's a green lanyard with a yellow sunflower going around it.
Yeah. Yeah. So many different opportunities. What about for caregivers? Any ideas for, stress relief or
Mm,
ways that caregivers can particularly take care of themselves? I think one
for
of the
sure.
things you highlighted is asking for help, which is
Yes.
a huge one. Are there other things that you
Of
recommend for
course.
caregivers?
It can be little things. It could be big things. So it could be taking a moment just to do some Zentangling or Zendala or coloring or whatever. It can be just going to bed a half hour earlier, just giving yourself a little bit extra time for rest. It can also be something big like going for a massage or getting some acupuncture. Acupuncture is great for stress relief and for pain relief. A lot of us who are living with chronic pain and still trying to do it all, it just makes the stress seem that much worse because we're also managing the pain. So go for acupuncture. Go get a pedicure or manicure. Make time to do those things. And I would say try one thing a week. Respite is a real thing. And we recommend if you're a care partner of someone living with dementia, hands on or a live in care partner with them, 6 hours a week of respite. However you define that. Now, I'm not saying that you have to spend 6 hours at your local spa, but it could be an hour or two to go to your doctor's appointment and then maybe stop at your favorite coffee shop on the way home. It's the little things, but with great intention. If, like my daughter goes to Dunkin' Donuts every day. She doesn't see it as self-care anymore. If you go with the intention of, I'm doing this for my self-care, it has a whole different meaning. And so part of it's just being mindful of what you're working into your day. This bag that I showed you before, this little sack, actually has my crochet in it. Because to me, that's a way that I do self-care. And I feel guilty about it all the time because there's always more work to do, or there's always more housework to do, or whatever. And I feel guilty sitting there and just crocheting. But you know what? That's my self-care. So
Mm.
it's important. I this morning was over at my dad's house and I brought my crochet with me just in case. I never got to use it, but the bag was there in case I had a moment. So sometimes it's being prepared for those moments of self-care.
Yeah. That's great. And I also appreciate what you sort of alluded to about setting expectations and
Mm,
sort of that idea of redefining the good enough, right? And for those in the social work
yeah.
psychology world, there's this concept of the good enough, mother, the good
Yep.
enough, whatever. What is the good enough holiday?
That's right. It
And
does not
sort of,
have to be perfection.
yeah, and redefining that for yourself can be so helpful as well. Um,
And I would really challenge anybody to tell me who among us has had the perfect holiday, where it all went to what we expected. It all looked the way we wanted it to look. It all tasted perfect. All of those things, unless it's something that everybody is bringing together so that they're only doing their one thing. And really, the holidays are about our spiritual moments, our spiritual growth, our spiritual connection, and the 5 F's of wonderful, successful, aging, or existence well-being. They are faith, family, friends, fun, and finances. And
mm,
if we're overspending, then it's not going to be the holiday that we want. If we are so stressed that there's no time for fun, or we're fighting with everyone in the family, or we don't get time to spend time with our friends, then those are the kinds of things that kill a holiday.
mhm.
But
Yeah.
faith is very important there too. This is for most of these holidays, they are either religious based or are somewhat spiritually based.
Mhm,
Thanksgiving is about gratitude, not
mhm.
about turkey.
Right. So those rituals, what are those meaningful rituals to really bring out,
Exactly.
to emphasize, whether
Yes.
it's singing favorite carols
Yep.
or sharing gratitude, what are you
Yep.
grateful for, or doing those small things or putting out, the menorah or the manger or that's those
Yep.
symbols together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it'll be for me. Oh,
That's great. Yeah.
forget the roast. I don't care about the Yorkshire pudding. Bring on some nice carols.
Yeah.
I want to sit in my living room with my family all around me singing the carols.
Yep. Yeah. And I'll be really honest, for a while, I stopped visiting my family on the holidays, exactly on the holidays. I would go a week or two before, a week or two after, and celebrate then because the stress of all the travel and all the expectations, we just had more fun together.
Yeah.
When we met on those other times and chose those meaningful things.
Yep.
So we'll do another call out, see if anybody has questions or ideas to share. And if not, that's fine. We are going to send an email out and circulate these slides with these great tips that Pam put together. So thank you so much.
My
We'll send
pleasure.
an email and circulate this. And this webinar will also go online in the next couple weeks. So you'll be able to revisit it if you have any questions.
And thank you
Um,
everybody who participated. I'm glad it was helpful. I
yes,
guess
and
it was good enough.
good enough. And we wish you all a really wonderful holiday season, whatever that looks
Enjoy.
like for you. And we hope that you can make it meaningful for you and your family, that there are moments of laughter, moments of relaxation, moments of tenderness.
I like that
And we're
tenderness.
so glad that you are a part of our Caring Kind community. And we hope to see you again real soon. Thanks,
Thanks
Pam.
everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
Pam.
Bye
Bye.
bye.